Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi mining community, welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Andrew Chubb, who's the CEO of Awalé Resources, who are one of the diligent and systematic mineral exploration companies in Africa, with a primary focus on discovering large, high-grade gold and copper gold deposits in Côte, West Africa. Andrew's an economic geologist with more than 20 years experience in exploration and mining, with a technical, operational, consulting and advisory experience leading large teams from exploration through to feasibility across Australia, Africa and Europe during his career. He's been with Awalé Resources since about 2018 as their CEO before moving into the CEO role last year. So he's going to tell us a little bit more about the company's journey, their recent fundraising activities and some of their recent drill results and what the company's looking to achieve. Hi, Andrew. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rob. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No, I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. So, as we always start these podcasts off, just wondered if you can just tell us a little bit about your career and your background. As I said, mentioned you've been in the industry for over 20 years. So I just wondered if you can just run us through your career until sort of present day.
Yeah, sure. So, it's been quite long now. But yeah, I'm an Australian. So, cut my teeth on Australian geology, particularly in Western Australia. And I was lucky enough as a young geologist to get international exposure quite early in my career. So I guess that sort of whetted my appetite for varied geology and different mineral deposit types. And so in early my relationship with West Africa or Africa has been quite long. My first sort of foray in Africa was actually back in 2003, 2004 field season. So, and that was actually in Mali. But I've worked in most countries in West Africa. There's only a handful a couple that I actually haven't, and have actually been associated with West Africa solidly since 2010. Lived in Burkina Faso for just under 5 years, and operated projects in Burkina and Niger, Liberia from there. As a company geologist and then as a consultant, I also worked in, ran projects and was like a geology lead in Ghana and other places as well. So, I got a fairly good grounding in West African geology, and I actually came into the Awale story pre-Awale with project selection. So the prior company was actually Mariana, which had a flagship project in Turkey. And they were looking for, other projects globally, and they asked me to come in and help them with some project selection in Côte d'Ivoire. And from that, whilst I was doing all those things, Mariana got taken over by Sandstorm, the royalty company out of Canada, and so, Sandstorm took everything, and then the CEO of Sandstorm at the time, the CEO of Mariana at the time, took out the African project subsequent to that takeover, and Awale was born, and then I came on as a staff guy for them as the technical lead. COO was my title, but really it's more like an exploration manager. And back then it was still sort of early days in Côte d'Ivoire. So I took the opportunity to peg a significant amount of ground in Côte d'Ivoire as a first mover. And we actually took on the ODNE project as part of that back in 2018, but we had a different flagship at the time. And then that slowly grew into the ODNE project now being the primary focus of the company. And the company went through a pretty rocky time. It was tough. Capital markets were tough. There was COVID. There was all sorts of things. So, but at the time, with the early stage work that we'd done at ODNE, as I personally view the ODNE as something that could be pretty special. We had some early, work that Randgold had actually done in the mid-90s that we sort of used as a guideline. They'd done a lot of regional geochemistry in the district, and we used that as an initial guideline and did infill soil sampling or more targeted soils programs and getting boots on ground and mapping and looking at the rocks and doing all those sort of really early stage things. And it was in, I think, around late 2020 we announced our first discovery there, and we got plus 100 gram meter intervals on a prospect called Empire. We got multiple plus 100 gram meter intervals on that, and it looked pretty interesting. And then we were starting to work up some other targets as well. And so for me, even back then, as a bit of backstory, when I first walked the ground, it was different. It didn't look like the normal, West African fare that I was used to seeing in all my other travels around West Africa. So we knew there was something different, but we kind of put things on the shelf. And there was always this regional base metal anomalism with copper, lead, zinc, nickel, and a little bit of uranium kicking around and things like that. So there was always different, and the alteration system was different too. And now that with the more work that we've done, that has really developed into a completely different model for mineralization, which is we use a iron oxide iron oxide copper gold related model. I call it a hybrid model because there is still big structures, big orogenic structures that control things as well, but we have a lot of intrusive activity and things that make it really quite interesting and different to other projects in West Africa. And I guess that's how I ended up becoming into the CEO role, because the company was having a lot of difficulty, and I guess the managing director at the time was looking at other countries, and for me at the time, that wasn't the right thing to be doing. I really thought that ODNE had everything a company should need to create interest and value for shareholders, and so we continued to have difficulty raising money based on that really sort of broad idea of two jurisdictions in globally quite far from each other and all that sort of thing. So, and then I was lucky enough to find Stephen Stewart from the Awalé Group, and they came in to make, I guess, an angel investment really in Awale. They could see the value in the discussions that I had with them, and one of their technical guys that actually worked in one of the world's biggest iron oxide copper gold provinces, which is Carias in Brazil, and Charles could see the similarities that I was talking about between what we were looking at in places like Brazil, Carias in Brazil, or the other IOCG provinces that I knew about in Australia. And so through that, that's when I actually became the Glenn stepped down as CEO, and I stepped up, and with that backing from the Awalé Group, we cleaned up the company. There was, like I said, it was struggling, so there was debt and various other things. So we cleaned up the company, and Newmont, who was already in, it's a protracted story. Newmont was already in there. And then we talked to Newmont, and they came in, put another placement as well in the Awale Topco on top of the joint venture, and yeah, and so we cleaned up the company, and fortunately enough, early this year we actually started to produce some more really good results we announced a discovery at a prospect we call BBM, and got some really nice early stage results, and created some extra interest in the company from those BBM results, and then subsequent to those, one of the holes that we drilled at another prospect that we'd been looking at for a while produced one of the best holes in West Africa in decades, and so that was a 1,500 gram meter hole, DH83 that we drilled at Charger, and it was quite a spectacular drill hit, which really was spectacular to me because it just didn't. A lot of these very high grade intervals or high grade intervals like that, it's all contained. Like you get this big sort of, I guess, like a nugget in the middle, which is a couple of kilograms per ton or something like that. But we had this consistent sort of 27 meters at plus 50 grams per ton with a core at plus 300 grams per ton. So it was a beautiful drill hit, and that really excited the market, and that's what led us down the path to sort of where we are now. So we raised $11.5 million, and so that was alongside the Newmont joint venture, which is only over 2 of the permits. So we have another we have 2.5 or 2,400 square kilometres in tenure in the district, and the Newmont joint venture is only 800 kilometres of that. So we have another sort of 1,700 odd square kilometres that is where we're looking to develop more value for the company with the fundraising that we've done recently.
Before we speak about Awale, I just want to go back to what you said in your introduction, that you went and done expat work, I think, earlier in your career, and you've done obviously quite a lot of expat work. I do get quite a few, I suppose, recent graduates and people at less experienced listen to this podcast. And I know, obviously, working in Australia, you're surrounded by mining, and you tend to get not many people leaving Australia because there's sufficient work around the various states. What would you say to anyone, I suppose, within Australia that, I suppose, why should they look at doing expat work? What did you gain from moving overseas, working in Africa and obviously other continents? What would you say to any Australian that may be thinking about moving on and moving into working as an expat? What did you gain from it if you look back on your career?
I think, well, I guess there's, I mean, it's an opportunity. So there's 2 parts to it, I guess, and I guess the major part as an Australian going overseas is the cross-cultural thing, and so you end up you learn things from people who have worked in different environments and have got a different educational background, but. So from a geology perspective, I think you can grow in that manner. But then from a career perspective, it's really given me the whole cross-cultural thing has been fantastic for me. And my French is not too bad these days after living in Francophone West Africa for all that time, and so but it created new challenges. And for me as a geologist as well, which I found quite interesting, and so that all sort of became part of, I guess, me growing as a person as well. So I think it is a fantastic opportunity. I mean, Australia, we're very lucky because it's such a big country and the geology is extremely diverse as well. So if I studied in the eastern states and saw a really varied range of different geology in the eastern states. You know, there's porphyry models. If you go up to Queensland, there's IOCG style deposits. You know, so there's porphyries, epithermals, all sorts of things like that, which is great. And then you go across to Western Australia, and it's very much greenstone belt geology and all that sort of stuff. So within Australia, you can actually, you know, depending on who you work with and how things sort of happen, you can get a broad geology experience, but I actually really enjoyed the cross-cultural part of it as well. So I guess I got my broad geology experience along with a bit of, you know, that cross-cultural thing as well, which I think is, you know, I feel like it's put me in a good position when I, you know, talk to other people and and also maybe made it easier for me to look at geology and digest that information and maybe be able to uh, tell people about what it is in more simple and less technical terms as well. But look at, you know, I guess as a young guy I always had wanderlust, so that was always going to be part of it anyway. But it's you know, I think if you get, for me, look, the key thing is when you're young, things like come across all the, you know, quite often you get things come across your path, and make sure you look at everything. And if you think it's right for you, I'm like, take the plunge, have a go, and see if you enjoy it. And you know, when you're young, you can always go back. You know, you can find your way back home, and if you think that's better for you, that's cool. But if things come across your path and you've got an opportunity and you think it's a good one, well, you know, why not have a look and see if you enjoy it. That would be my main piece of advice to younger guys and girls that are, you know, starting a career in mining and exploration.
So it's definitely highly recommended that you would consider someone in Australia. And I'm not encouraging every Australian to leave Australia and work overseas, but just make it an option if it's something that you want to do, and if you want to travel.
Yeah.
I suppose look at it, because it doesn't. I suppose it does enhance your career eventually, rather than just working in Australia throughout your career.
Yeah. As a young geologist, I had to do things like, you know, when I graduated, I was kind of disappointed because in the previous years before me, like the bigger companies, like back then it was CRA, RTZ, and these others, they would come in and interview people, and then you would get cadetships, and some of the guys that I know that got cadetships with the bigger groups, that they then got sent to other global projects. And you know, through those cadetships, and they got this really beautiful experience. And so, you know, in a way, I managed to organically find that kind of experience through, you know, working for different people. And it's you know, I think that's a really good idea. And you know, to get good experience in geology, you need to spend a couple of years somewhere. If it's working out for you and it all looks good, you do need to spend a couple of years to get that understanding. And if a company's growing, then you get to grow with the company as well, or maybe, you know, there are all sorts of things that go on. But yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to do.
So I just wonder if you can just give us an overview of Awalé Resources, as a company, obviously since you've been there.
Yeah, so look, we're Toronto listed, and on the venture exchange. We are an exploration company, and aspire to make big discoveries, which I think, you know, we've made some really solid discoveries now, and we're in a position where we're looking to start to turn those towards resources. And you know, we are sort of well placed to build value over the next couple of years through those discoveries and through making more discoveries. So converting our initial things into resources and then making more discoveries alongside that. Within the Newmont, you know, we're lucky because we've got the Newmont joint venture, and they've just moved to phase two of that joint venture, which is phase two is a $10 million US spend on those JV properties. And so we've got good budget to keep drilling and exploring on the joint venture, which we manage at the moment. And then, like I said, we've just raised 11.5 million Canadian dollars. So, post, the cost of fundraising, which is sort of roughly, it was roughly $1 million to get through all that. So, we've still got $10.5 million in kitty to start spending on our Canadian dollars to start spending on our 100% Awale permits. And so, our budgets over the next couple of years are going to be really, really quite healthy. And we've got an opportunity to move things forward really rapidly. And so, we're ramping up from a staff perspective. We are actually ramping up at the moment. We're also looking at new technologies and things that will help us advance those things quite rapidly. So there's some new technology out of Australia, which allows you to analyze for gold and silver with your geochemistry and early stage drilling with a portable XRF. So we're going to invest in that technology and have it running up on site, and we'll be doing all our own analysis on site and all those sorts of things as well, so we can turn over things rapidly from going from really broad spaced big scale geochemical regional exploration into move those targets rapidly into more strategic infill kind of geochemistry and geophysics towards drill targeting. So it's a pretty exciting time for the company and anyone that actually gets the opportunity to come on board with us. I think it's it'd be an exciting time for people who are the current team that we've got is dominantly Ivorian. We've got some over since 2018 have put together a really good team down there. There's some a good team of geologists and field technicians, etc. All the way through to our ancillary staff. The girls and guys down there are a really good team. And then we've got a little bit of expat support alongside that as well. So we've actually got a young UK graduate with us at the moment, and he's really enjoying his time in that expat role, and he does those things that I was talking about. So he's getting that cultural experience, and when he takes breaks, he generally doesn't go home. He goes and does interesting things either in West Africa or in other countries and things like that when he's taking his breaks. So he's getting a really Joe's doing some pretty cool things actually. He recently went to Mauritania and sat on top of the iron ore trade and all that sort of stuff. He's done some really cool stuff, and I remember doing that from when I first went to Romania. I got to travel all around Eastern Europe, and all those sorts of things. So it's pretty cool.
You've recently released some encouraging drill results. Just wondering if you can just tell us a little bit about that and what it means for the company.
Yeah, so the BBM discovery that I mentioned is a really interesting one, and we those drill results that we came out with, we drilled only a handful of holes, and I think the initial phase was 4 holes. People thought, okay, that's interesting, but really didn't do much. We drilled another, I think it was 12 or 14 holes. Over quite a long strike length, broad space drilling, 150 to 300 meters, and sort of delineated something that was, anomalous, or got good results over 1.3 kilometers. So with a really nice core for an initial sort of back of the hand resource that people, if they look at the data, they'll be able to sort of pick out on those sort of things. And the recent drilling which we've done, we've gone back in and drilled some more holes there on what I would call sort of framework drilling, or some people call it wingspan drilling, which is just trying to figure out how big this thing could be. Look, so you can plan up your sort of next phase of drilling, which is more like infill and resource kind of drilling. And it's looking at the I've said before on other conversations that it's like a geologist's dream, because it's a tabular ore body, and it's increasing in width at depth, perhaps increasing a little bit in grade at depth as well. And the drilling that we've done, it's been behaving, so that's really great. And the other one, which we announced, was Charger. It's absolutely spectacular drill hole in a breccia body, and we have been drilling that more holes into that as well in the last couple of months. And Charger those breccia bodies. They're not tabular ore bodies. They're a little bit more difficult technically to get your drilling to perform. But I've been happy with what we've been seeing, and I'm actually headed down site the day after tomorrow. So I'll be on site looking at that core over the next week or so. And really, the photos the guys have been sending through and what they've been telling me is fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to having a look at that core from BBM and Charger as well. So throughout the European and North American summer, we'll have sort of results flow. Hopefully, starting from the end of this month, early July, and then roughly on a 1 month cadence throughout that summer season. So July, August, September, every sort of 4 to 6 weeks, we'll hopefully be putting out some more good results through that period. So that'll keep us interested, from a desktop point of view, and hopefully our investors' point of view, to be ready for Q3, Q4 when the field season ramps up again. And like I said, along with ramping up our regional work, so we'll have a joint venture team and a regional team really hitting the ground hard from sort of September, October onward for that 2024-2025 field season.
Just wondered if you can obviously speak a little bit more about the recent financing and what it means to the company, and obviously the Newmont joint venture money as well, and what you're looking and how you're looking to use that capital, and I suppose what you're looking to achieve also.
Yeah, so I'll start with our money. The idea with raising, with that capital raising, was to ensure that we had enough money to do the on-ground work that we need to do to get from A to B, and also have enough money to start drilling those as well. So I didn't want to, I've spent, as we mentioned, my career's been quite protracted, and as both a consultant and with bigger companies and smaller companies, and at the junior end of the sector, when going back to the market with beautiful geochemical anomalies and things like that, people are not really, you're not really getting people excited, and sometimes it can be difficult to find the funding to actually go from that early stage, I guess, discovery of good targets to be drilling, to actually get the money to drill them. It can be problematic. So we've raised enough money to take us through that. We'll fly airborne geophysics, we'll do stream sediment sampling, we'll do our follow-up geochemistry on all those sorts of things, and build rate rank drill targets, right? And have money at the end of all that to actually go into early stage drilling, and be going and not have to go back to the market to ask for more money to get to get to that position. And I think that's a good thing for the company as well, in that the I guess from a capital markets perspective, um, the the there isn't sort of we're not looking to go and raise money again in the near future. So, the capital markets can just do their work with hopefully we're creating more and more interest in the company, and then, more and more people are interested in buying shares on market, and and trading our shares, which is actually what you want to be happening. And so, I think we're just sort of well positioned for the next 2 years to really build value on that regional ground. And then on the joint venture ground, as mentioned, Newmont's just sort of a couple of weeks ago or a month ago now confirmed moving to phase two, which is a $10 million US spend. The current budget for this year on the joint venture is 3.5. Hopefully, with last year we got contingency budget of 750,000 US dollars on top of the 3 million that we had, because we were producing such good results, and so I'm expecting to keep producing good results. So hopefully we get contingency budget on that as well. So we're potentially looking at upwards of $4 million spend on the joint venture, is if we get that contingency budget as well. So there's we're really looking at driving those things forward, getting into some more resource style drilling alongside, drilling other pipeline, initial pipeline drilling on other targets that we've got within the joint venture. So a pretty exciting year ahead.
Obviously, you mentioned the company needs to ramp up to achieve its goals. I just wondered what the plans are behind that ramp up to obviously achieve the objectives that you've got.
Yeah. So we are look, we are recruiting at the moment. The recruiting we're doing has been through, I guess, our network. And I have actually found some high quality candidates through my and others within the group's network. And so, at the moment there is just me. So, I'm looking at, or I have already got a VP exploration that will be starting with us in August, and I've got a couple of candidates that we've been interviewing, as chief geologist sort of roles. But then, I'm also looking at other junior geologists, and you were talking about, international guys. So I've already got a handful of CVs, and I haven't interviewed anyone yet. But there's sort of a junior geologist expat kind of role that we're looking to fill, and then the other roles are actually internal Ivorian roles. So we always, have what do you call it? They're like interns from the university. They call them stagiaires in the French system. So we've got a list of people who were good from that perspective. But yeah, we're looking to fill project geologist kind of roles within Côte d'Ivoire. And I have over the years I've also built the understanding about local content, and we work really hard at, and when I mean local, I don't just mean Ivorian, I mean from the Odieni district. And so those sort of field technician kind of roles and all that sort of thing, I really push down like a culture that we need to be, employing people locally to, it's good for the company's profile, but it's also, really, it's one of the most rewarding things about working in places like West Africa is finding diamonds in the rough, if you like, in the regions that you're working in, and getting them on board, and they just know nothing. They know nothing about the exploration industry and how things work, and getting them on board as itinerant labour, if you like, and then actually bringing them into being salaried workers, and they come to work for us every day, and all that sort of thing. That's a really really rewarding part of working in less developed countries.
Obviously, you're mining in Cote at the moment. Just wondering if you can just tell us a little bit about what the mining environment is like currently, so people are aware of, I suppose, up to date and live news of mining in Cote.
Yeah, look, it's very good. I mean, Cote d'Ivoire changed their so like I said, I've got a protracted history in West Africa, and a lot of people wouldn't go into Cote d'Ivoire sort of in pre 2012 because their regulatory framework was um, not very robust, would be the way to put it. They put in a really good, robust regulatory framework in 2012, and so since then, and this happened in Burkina Faso when I was living in Burkina Faso as well. It's like in the late, sort of I can't remember the year exactly, but sort of 2008 to something around there, they changed their or put in a sound regulatory framework, and that foreign investment started to come into Burkina Faso, and many mines came online as a result of that. And we're seeing the same thing happen now with Cote d'Ivoire. Like you know back pre then, there was I think four operating mines: Ity, Benicro, and Yaouré were the main three. But now, there are, recently there's been three mines come online, and now that pipeline things, there is now there is two other pipeline projects that will become mines, and so we're seeing the fruits of that regulatory framework come through. So the other big one I forgot was the Tongon. So the big companies. So that was a Randgold operation. Now Barrick. Benicro was Newcrest. They sold that out. Another company called Allied Gold got Benicro, and then the other bigger operator, or mid-tier operator, or big mid-tier operator, is Endeavour there. And then you've got the juniors like Tieto out of Australia, and Perseus. Perseus is mid-tier as well. That it's subsequent to that mining law change that Perseus got. Tangarella up and running up in the north of Cote d'Ivoire there. So, that's really happening. And Cote d'Ivoire as a jurisdiction generally is very safe. It is an economic heartbeat of Francophone West Africa. And so, it's not just a mining investment destination. It's got, there are many other investments in Cote d'Ivoire, both from sort of internally from Cote d'Ivoire and West African investment, but foreign investment in quite large scale projects in Cote d'Ivoire, which include energy, mining, oil and gas. There was recently a big gas discovery there, and it really is an economic powerhouse of West Africa, and it's a very safe and good jurisdiction to operate in.
And lastly, what's the sort of short to medium term outlook, maybe in the next 6 to 12 months? Obviously with the cash that you've got available, and obviously drilling that you're going to commence in a few months' time. Just wondered what the plan of action is over the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, so look, it's just keep drilling on the joint venture. There's always more geophysics to do. We're always finding new targets. But as far as the drilling goes, we'll move towards some more resource kind of drilling at that BBM target, as well as drilling pipeline targets there as well. I mean, we've got Newmont on board, and the idea is that when I guess their hurdle is as a rule of thumb is something that's like 5 million ounces equivalent. So we that's the target there is for them is to keep proving that there is that 5 million ounce kind of potential within that joint venture property. But so it's moving into resource drilling and then also keeping on with that pipeline drilling. And then, as I mentioned, with the regional work on it's all very greenfields. So the next 6 to 12 months really is getting our head down, doing a lot of boots on ground mapping, geochemistry, broad scale geophysics, and building those drill targets. And so hopefully we'll be, if we've got any early stage targets from that work. Like I said, we've got money in kitty now. If we think it's a standout drill target, we'll get in and drill it. But otherwise, it's really doing that regional work and building targets and proving there's value in that district scale. We truly, the model that we've got we've constantly for the last 12 months been talking of district scale potential, and we're true believers in that district scale potential. And I think that's one of the main reasons of being able to raise the money that we did, is because there is a belief in that district scale potential. And I think there's renewed interest from other companies in the district. It was sort of an unloved district in Côte d'Ivoire from a geology perspective before, and Awale has certainly changed that idea. So there is a lot more interest in that district from other companies now as well.
Andrew, appreciate your time. Thank you for giving us an update on Awalé Resources and obviously recent news that you've released, obviously with financing and drilling. And obviously wish you well for the next sort of 6 to 12 months. Perhaps you can come on the podcast next year and give us an update on some of the drilling results that you would have done later this year.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Rob. Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, no worries. If our audience wants to follow the company and yourself's journey, how can they go about doing that? What social media platform channels are you on?
We use Twitter a lot, or X. So we're regularly putting things out on Twitter, LinkedIn, things like that. You can definitely sign up on the website as well. If you sign up on the website, you'll get our media, or just even if you don't want to sign up, we've got media links on there. I do the odd webinars, just to keep people informed. When there's geology to talk about, I'll do some more detailed geology discussions on webinars and things like that. So, any of those avenues.
Yeah, we'll include those in the show notes. So obviously people can have easy access to that. And if they want to sign up and listen to obviously up-to-date geology news from the projects, then obviously they can do. So wish you well for the remainder of the year. And hopefully you can come back on the podcast next year and give us an update.
Be happy to. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. Share this episode far and wide, obviously with people in the mining industry, but people outside of the mining industry. We need to spread the word of mining, the branding around mining, and obviously, as Andrew's alluded to, finding those big deposits, which looks like we're on course maybe for something. So appreciate your continued support. And until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.